Okay, Assalamualaikum, Prof. Zaida and friends. My name is Farah Aniza. So my proposal topic will be inquiry-based learning or IBL for short using Google Classroom to improve motivation and critical thinking in pre-university biology students. All right, so throughout this presentation, I will be covering a number of topics. For example, introduction, I will lead to problem statement, and I will talk a bit about my lead review, theoretical and conceptual framework, my proposed sampling, research design, instrument, data analysis, and lastly, I will cover about the ethics as well as my operational definition. Okay. All right, so I am a biology teacher, biology educator in one of the pre-university college. So my passion has been about mostly about STEM. Okay, so science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Okay, I've been seeing a trend nowadays that students are not really into STEM careers or STEM subject. Okay, although Malaysian Education Blueprint, that is the education blueprint from 2013 until 2025, although they emphasize more on STEM education to produce more STEM professionals, but it looks like students nowadays, the passion towards STEM is declining and declining. And as evident here, we can see that I've looked at how did Malaysia did for STEM. Okay, we look at the PISA here. PISA is Program for International Student Assessment. So they look at three domains: reading, mathematics, and also science. Okay, so for Malaysia, in the latest 2022 PISA assessment, we were not doing well. Okay, so the 2018 scores were even higher than the 2022 score. So it has significantly dropped in mathematics and also science. So for me, this is a bit alarming, or this is a bit concerning, because there's all the budgets, all of the plan to enhance STEM education. It seems that our students are not doing well globally. Okay, so Malaysia in Asian, the ranking in Asian is we are currently at number 4, behind Brunei, Vietnam, and ultimately our neighbor Singapore. Okay, so I would like to do something to help this issue here. Okay, so as I've mentioned before, Malaysia's underperformance in global STEM assessment like PISA and TIMSS is concerning. So TIMSS is another assessment, Trends in International Mathematics and Science Study. Okay, so I look at papers or articles that can explain this low performance in our Malaysian students in STEM. So one of the papers that really interest me is from Pereira and Asadullah, 2019. So the title of the paper is Mind the Gap. So this researcher, they look at these three countries, Korea, Singapore, and also Malaysia. So this researcher were trying to look what can explain the gap between Malaysia and Korea and Malaysia and Singapore. Okay, so they look at the demographic, they look at the students, they look at the teachers, they look at the schools, they look at the government and the facility, and so on. Okay, one of the striking thing that can explain the difference between the three countries is the lack of emphasis on critical thinking skills in our students. Okay, as we can see lately in the newer curriculum, we can see there's an attempt to teach like critical thinking questions for students to answer. But why can't our student answer them? Because it's not up to their level yet. Maybe the syllabus is there, but our delivery does not promote critical thinking. Okay, and another researcher, Jaafar and Ma'at 2020, they found that one of the reason in underperformance is because of low motivation among our students. So not many, they did not enjoy studying STEM. All right. So why is critical thinking a very important thing for STEM? Because critical thinking is like the foundation of learning science. You need to think critically to answer a certain phenomena. Okay, so why does this happen? We need to find an explanation. So if we don't have critical thinking skills, then we will not have effective STEM education. All right. So how can we promote critical thinking skill? How can we improve our students' critical thinking? And one of them is by adopting a more inquiry-based learning approach, okay, or for short, IBL. So what is IBL? So IBL is basically it's encouraging students to question, students to evaluate evidence or data and came up with their own reasoning, a logical reasoning. Okay, so currently, the phenomena in Malaysia is maybe some trying to adopt IBL, but most of the time, the teachers did not have time or the classes is too big, so they went on with traditional or conventional delivery. So this is when teacher deliver the content and student sit on their chair passively listening to the teacher. So this might also lead to low motivation. So there's not much inquiry, there's not much questioning going on. Okay, so since I'm a edutech student, master in edutech student, I'm interested in IBL. And what if we add IBL using one of the platform, one of the technology? Can we improve motivation? Can we improve critical thinking? Okay, so the platform that I have chosen is Google Classroom. Why? Because firstly, I am myself an avid user of Google Classroom since 2019. Okay, so I've been using it for quite a long time, and most teachers also use Google Classroom. Basically, if you have internet access, you can use Google Classroom. And the web-based activities, virtual labs, online simulation, and it also allow collaborative discussion among the students, and it's very user-friendly for students and for the teachers. So I think it's a good platform for us to study. Okay, so this has led to my problem statement. So as I've mentioned before, what are the challenges in our STEM education? So it's a declining STEM performance. It's going down and down and down. So we need to do something to address this issue. Okay, so one of the key, not one, two of the key issue that I found is lack of critical thinking skills and lack of motivation. So what if we try to solve these two variable? Okay, and the solution is to increase critical thinking skills, we need to move toward IBL with a technology, and the technology that I've chosen is the Google Classroom, and the sampling, which I'll explain later, will be on pre-university student. Okay. All right, so my research objective, there are three of them. So number one, the first RO is to investigate the effects of IBL using GC on students' motivation in learning biology. Okay, and the second one is for second variable to analyze the effect of IBL plus GC on pre-university students' critical thinking skills. So this is the second variable. And for the third variable, for the third research objective, I'm interested to know if, let's say, there's an increase in student motivation after intervention, how and why? How can IBL plus Google Classroom enhance the students' motivation? Okay, so this will be the qualitative research. And these are my research questions, which is relevant to the research objective on the left-hand side. Okay. All right, so here's my lead review. So since I'm going to dwell into Google Classroom, I look in the databases. So I've chosen 6 articles about Google Classroom, and I found that if you see here, most of the literature, most of the articles in Google Classroom, they talk about perception, okay, on the effectiveness, for example. Another article, they talk about engagement and achievement in mathematics, okay, for secondary school student. And the third paper also look at student engagement. So this one, coupling Google Classroom and WhatsApp. Okay, so the fourth one, they are looking at achievement or performance, and the fifth and the sixth paper, they both look at perception. One look at the student's perception, and another paper is looking at the teacher's perception. All right, so I can conclude from based on these 6 articles, most of the research on GC or Google Classroom focuses on student engagement and perception. So not much about motivation and almost non-existent on pre-university student, which I'll explain in my sampling later. Okay, and very little research on the different learning types. For example, IBL and PBL. PBL is problem-based learning. Okay, so not many study have look at what if we use PBL through Google Classroom and so on. So that's a good area to be explored. Okay, so this is my theoretical framework. My inquiry-based learning will be based on Fosnot and Perry, 1996, and I will focus on the 5E of IBL, which I'll explain after this. And the use of Google Classroom, the use of technology will be based on technology integration models, and one of them is TPEC, okay, Teaching and Pedagogical Content Knowledge. All right, so we will assess the students based on this theory. We will look at their motivation and critical thinking based on ARCS and critical thinking based on FASION 2011 theory. Okay, so what's actually inquiry-based learning? So the 5E of inquiry-based learning, in essence, if people ask me, I will tell them this. I will show them this quote. Tell me and I forget. Teach me and I remember. Involve me and I learn. So this is the same thing that happens with students. If they passively listen to the teacher, some of them might remember. But if they do it themselves, they find the answer themselves, that's when they will stay, the cognitive levels is increased. Okay? They will learn better, they will remember better, and they will be motivated. All right. Okay, so the first E is engage. So we engage the students with a challenging situation or an issue, for example, enzyme. There are 4 factors that affect enzyme reaction, for example. So one of them is pH and another is temperature. Okay, teacher can passively deliver that. But how can we show the students? Students need to explore them themselves. Okay, either by experiment, or we can use online simulation since we are using Google Classroom, right? So they can choose any simulation. What if they increase the pH? What if they increase the temperature? Will the reaction go faster or will the reaction go slower? Okay, once they got the answer, they need to find an explanation. Why does when we increase the temperature, the rate also goes higher? Okay, so this is when they relate with previous theories, they relate with what they have learned in class, okay? So all the thinking is going on, all the critical thinking is happening. Okay, and once they got the answer, they then need to elaborate. They will apply the knowledge and it will cause them to the content will be understood better. Okay, lastly, students will reflect and on the knowledge and the learning process as well as the assessment. Okay, all right. Okay, so this is the conceptual framework of my proposed study. So we will have a pre-test instrument on the motivation and critical thinking, right? So I will be basing on the theory by Keller, ARCS Keller 2010, and also Fashion for critical thinking. And then this is the intervention for the intervention group, and the same theory, the same instrument will be used post-test. All right. Okay, for population and sampling, I'm planning to do the study on the pre-university biology students from A level at one of the colleges in Shah Alam. Okay, so I'm explaining why I choose this demographic because, like I said, in the lit review, not many papers, not many study look at pre-university. For example, matriculation or A level or the foundation level before they get into first year, right? Okay, most of the study are on second year student or first year student or secondary students, okay, non-existent pre-university. So I think it's interesting to look at them because um, if you want to instill, if you want trying to enhance them, if you do at second year or first year university student, for me it's quite it's a bit too late because the courses that they have taken is already focused. Okay, they know what they are taking already. It's very specific. But if pre-university, most of the students are still figuring out what to do, whether or not they will continue with STEM. Okay, pre-university subject is biology, chemistry, and physics. It's still general. Okay, when we are able to get their attention, when they are motivated, this might lead to them choosing a STEM courses in university later. So I think it's an interesting demographic to look at the STEM education at the moment. Okay, so I plan to do cluster sampling because we cannot divide the classes. We cannot do total random or true random sampling. So hopefully we will have two classes and each one of them roughly around 30 students, and we will randomly assign which class that undergoes experimental and which class undergoes control group. Okay, so this is the research design. I'm planning to do mixed method, so qualitative plus quantitative method. Okay, so the pre-university student, total 60, randomly assigned, cluster sampling. Okay, so not randomly assigned. So this is we assign the class, not the students, okay? And then both of the classes will be briefed for roughly an hour. We will get their consent. We will try to explain what is happening, the timeline of the study. We will ensure that their learning outcomes or syllabus will not be affected. It's just that the delivery of the material will be slightly different. Okay, so one class undergo conventional instruction as per normal, and the other class will be using IBL-based Google Classroom. This will be happening 3 weeks, and after that, we will test them using the questionnaire. Okay, sorry, I forgot to mention, we will also get the pre-test data for questionnaire about motivation and critical thinking. I'll talk about the instrument later, okay? All right, so and then we give them the same instrument for motivation and critical thinking. And for those who have high scores in motivation questionnaire, we will choose 5 of them through purposive sampling to undergo focus group interview. So around 5 students with higher score, we want to ask them, um, how can your motivation levels be increased? What is the special thing about using IBL plus GC, for example? Okay, so this is a mixed method research design. RQ1, which is looking at the effect on motivation, is quasi-experimental. Okay, this is quantitative. We use questionnaire. RQ2, looking at critical thinking, also quasi-experimental, using quantitative as well, using questionnaire. And RQ3, which is looking how does the intervention enhance motivation, is focus group research. So in overall, it's a mixed method. All right, so the instrument that I'll be using for RQ1, which is motivation variable, we'll be using the commonly used has validated in many studies, the Instructional Materials Motivation Survey, or IMMS for short. It's based on ACRS theory by Keller. It has 36 items. It has 4 dimensions: attention, relevance, confidence, and satisfaction. Okay, it's a 5-point Likert scale. And for the second variable, critical thinking skills, we will adapt a critical thinking disposition instrument, or CTDI for short, based on the theory by Fashion 2011. It has 25 items, 3 subdivision: engagement, maturity, and innovativeness. Okay, like IMMS, CTDI also use 5-point Likert scale. Okay, for the third RQ, how does IBL using GC enhance student motivation? We will use focus group interview, also questions related to ACRS, and maybe some aspect of motivation, engagement, and specific features of the GC that they like or that make them feel motivated. All right, as well as peer teaching interactions in the platform. Okay, for the data analysis, the RQ1 and RQ2 are quantitative data. So both of these data, we will evaluate or analyze in SPSS. Using SPSS, we will find the descriptive statistic. So we will look at the mean. We will look at the standard deviation for each of the dimension. Okay, so IMS has 5 dimension. CTDI has 3 dimension. Okay, we will look at the mean for each dimension. Okay, and then we'll look at inferential statistic. We will look at paired sample t-test to compare pre-test and post-test for motivation questionnaire, and we will look at the pre-test and post-test of the critical thinking questionnaire. Okay, and we also will conduct independent sample t-test. This is just for post-test. We want to see the difference between post-test of experimental group and post-test of control group, if there's any difference, okay? All right, and from the IMMS, those who have high scores, we will choose 5 of them to undergo the interview, and this is qualitative data. We want to get their insight, their opinions, their experience on the 3 weeks of using IBL in Google Classroom. Okay, so the interview will be transcribed using Author AI or any software for that matter, and coded or classified using NVivo for thematic analysis. Is there any similar theme among all 5 students? So we will do that. Okay, second last aspect is the research ethic. Okay, so we will ensure that the well-being and confidentiality of all participants are protected. We will ensure that we use the same lesson plan. The syllabus will not be affected. All learning outcomes will be delivered. It's just that the delivery or teaching strategy that is different, okay? And then to maintain anonymity, we will assign numbers. So we will not reveal their real name, and we will conduct anonymous interviews for RQ3, okay? And most importantly, we will try to obtain approval from the college, from Inter Education, to make sure that everyone is aware that the research is taking place, and to make sure that we adhere to the institutional guideline and ethical standards. All right. Okay, so this is my operational definition for IBL. Like I said, it will be based on the theory, but in this research, IBL refers to the learning strategies where the IBL is made through Google Classroom. Okay, so the syllabus, the implementation plan, modules of packages, learning materials, assignment, will all be done via Google Classroom. Okay, so students also give feedback to the through Google Classroom. Okay, and conventional instruction is like a traditional method, and pre-university student, in this research we focus on third semester students from the A-level program, because during the third semester, that's when they need to do like research. Okay, they need to inquire, they need to look for answers. For example, issues in biology, abortion, for example, or does genetically modified food harmful or beneficial? So they need to look for it themselves. So the lecturers are more of a guide to them. Okay. Okay, I think that's all from me. These are all my references on this slide. So I hope that I'm doing okay, and I hope that my research is doable and practical, and I welcome any recommendations from Prof. Zaida. Okay, thank you very much. I love research.